Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show, Red Pill Edition. My name is Leon Jones, and in this segment, I'm going to talk about politics. But when I talk about politics in this video, I'm not going to focus on the election. But what I will focus on is what I've learned from this election and past elections. But as a voter, we need to do more than vote. So, the title of this evening's video is We Need to Participate in a Political Process. We need to participate in a political process. Now, why do I believe that? Well, if you look at the big tech giants like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, which Instagram is owned by Facebook, YouTube, and Google, they had a big influence in what went on here in 2020 because they had the clout. They participated in a process. Now, the process does not necessarily mean that you get involved in running for office. The process can be becoming a donor, creating media. When it comes to politics, one must understand that a lot of your politicians have been bought and paid for. And in this country, we are an oligarchy. Now, what do I mean by oligarchy? I mean for the rich, by the rich. But you don't have to be rich to be part of the political process. One way I can tell you to get into politics is try at the grassroots level. Now, I live here in the state of Indiana. Now, I recently signed up for the Indiana Republican Party. Now, some people might ask me, why did I do that? Well, I did that because I can utilize my YouTube platform to basically promote somebody on a local level to get into politics. I have a blog talk radio show. I could go out to their office and promote a potential candidate for political office. Or if I really want to get into the political process myself, I can run at the local level. You see, politics is more than just being a voter. And I say that because a number of us go to vote, but we don't really know who we're voting for because we don't pay attention to the candidates' records. We see a lot of information on television and we go along with it. But when it comes to politicians, we vote on just 2 out of 3 branches of government. We vote on the legislative branch and the executive branch. And right now I'm talking about nationally. Because your judicial branch is appointed by the executive branch, which is the president. But the judicial branch, although they are appointed by the President of the United States, the judicial branch must be confirmed by all of the senators. But also, what I learned here in 2020 is the media played a big part in what went on this year, because corporate media knew how to get an audience, and they knew how to drum up stories that got people upset. You look at the George Floyd story. Although George Floyd was a criminal, the media knew how to drum it up to make everything look racial. And as black people are the easiest to get into their feelings because black people are naturally emotional people. A number of African American people do not know anything about politics. They've been subjected to one party. You look at what's going on in Georgia right now, you have a preacher running for office. And the funny thing about that pastor, he speaks very well. Margaret Sanger, who created Planned Parenthood, would love this pastor because this pastor speaks a lot of hate, particularly about the military, although his father was in the military. You see, when it comes to some of these African American politicians, a number of them are liberal. A number of them are communist in thinking. They're Marxist in thinking. Many of them don't even know what they're running for. They know what they're running against. But a lot of your black politicians are in your urban areas. And if you look at your urban areas run by black politicians, you could see that the cities have a lot of corruption. And the corruption comes from the black politicians. The people who live in the cities are basically poor. And a number of the individuals are uneducated. Now, you look at cities like Chicago and Baltimore and Milwaukee and Detroit, you have your good parts and your bad parts. You see, the people who live in a good part of the city, their problem is they live in an area that has high rent. And the people who live in the bad part, they live in an area that has low rent, but the area is not safe. But getting back onto the political train here, what we need to do as voters when it comes to politics, we have to participate. Now, if you don't want to run for office, a good way to get involved with the political process in your state is to get on social media. Now, right now, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook are not good for conservatives. In fact, I'm thinking about going over to Rumble, MeWe, and Parler, but I still have my Blog Talk Radio show. And when it comes to Blog Talk Radio, I pay for Blog Talk Radio. So Blog Talk Radio can't be flagged. But right now, YouTube has a new policy that if you talk about what went on in 2020, your video and your channel is possibly subjected to be flagged. And what we have when it comes to Facebook, Twitter, Google, which owns YouTube, the media, your print media, and of course your institutions, I call them of higher indoctrination instead of higher learning. These are the institutions, all of them, they promote communism. They promote socialism, Marxism. They promote tyranny. Now, if you do run for politics, what should be a good qualifier besides being a good speaker? Because Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not very smart. Yes, she looks attractive to a number of individuals because she's Latino with long hair. But do you hear what comes out of her mouth? She's supposed to have a degree in economics. Well, in my humble opinion, she's not qualified to talk about any type of economics because she doesn't know anything about economics. And a lot of these politicians, they want to stay in office because they will not be able to make it out here in the real world. Because in the real world, you got to be innovative. A number of these politicians don't know about running a job, hiring people, firing people. They don't know about a marketing plan. They don't really know about hard work because everything's been given to them by the taxpayers. But as a voter, we need to understand the three branches of government. And as a voter, when we look at a ballot, we need to look at the whole ballot. And that includes the ballot initiatives. Many of us, when we go press that lever to vote, we'll go darken the circle, or we'll press a button on a machine without knowing anything about the candidate. The best time to really learn about politics is you should get a book and study politics. You should study the Constitution. You should understand what the First Amendment is, what the Second Amendment is. You see, a lot of Americans are very ignorant of politics. And the people in power love ignorant people because they can manipulate ignorant people. Because what people like Chucky Schumer want is tyranny. And are utilizing outside sources to create tyranny. Now, Facebook, I believe, donated $350 million to some of the blue states. I know George Soros gave some of the attorney generals money. I know one in Philadelphia and one in St. Louis. You see, the Democrats have figured out the game. The game is about money. But the Republicans, and I'm going to say this about the Republicans. Yes, I don't have a problem voting for you, but a number of you Republicans are cowards. You do exactly what the Democrats tell you to do. Now, some of you Republicans want part of the action. I can understand that money can make a honest man become corrupt. Or we can say money can turn an honest man corrupt because the money and lifestyle is good in politics. And see, when you are a politician, you do not get the same health benefits and Social Security benefits as we little people. You get better Social Security and better health benefits. But as a voter, you have to be an informed voter. You have to do a lot of reading. And participating in the political process means you need to understand laws. And the first place to start is locally. What's going on with the budget in your municipality? If there's issues with the police, Do you know who your mayor is? Do you know who your city council is? If you want to get into the media and you want to basically put pressure on your local politicians, one must understand what's going on in the place they live. Because when you are a working person, the policies made by local politicians affect you. You know, I live here in Lafayette, Indiana. So the taxes I pay go into the bus services, public works, welfare system, unemployment, and other programs. But you have to look at the taxes that you're paying in that particular city. If you believe that your taxes aren't being utilized for the right purpose, you should put pressure on your politicians to find out why. And to find out why means here's a way of participating. Go to town hall meetings. Ask questions. See if you can interview a politician. These are all free. But to get in the political game means we need to learn about the political game. And when it comes to we African American people, many of us do not know the political game. Many of us have a monolithic way of thinking, but I know all African Americans are not monolithic. All people aren't monolithic. You see, the people who are controlling what's going on in this country are on the left. And if you see the two parties out here, I've seen a switch in the two parties. Used to be the Republican Party was the party of the rich. Now the Democrats are the party of the rich. And the Republicans are the party of the working class. But to get into politics, we cannot let our everyday lives be a distractor. We have to use time management. I know we have families, but in order to improve life for our families or ourselves, we have to continue to fight. Some of us don't like wearing a mask. What we have to do is go to the city council and even go to the state legislature to say, hey, this mask isn't working. I can prove this mask isn't working, which basically wearing a mask doesn't work. It makes you feel good, but it really doesn't work. You know, when it comes to COVID, if the Republicans were smarter, they wouldn't have got played with COVID. See, the Democrats, what they did, they used COVID as a escape route to basically put in their socialist policies. Now, they didn't get all the way through with their socialist policies, but when you hear them talk about, we're going to give you a certain amount of money a month, that should caution you, because they're looking for UBI. UBI is Universal Basic Income. They're looking for a minimum wage of $15 an hour. Well, the federal minimum wage is $7.50, but a number of places that I drive by every day, and that includes McDonald's and Burger King, they're paying twice that much. They're paying $13 to start. But even if you gave individuals $15 an hour, that's still not going to work. You're going to put small businesses out of business. Or what's going to happen is small business is going to cut your hours because they make money. They have to make money in order to pay you. And when it comes to business, the greatest expense is always labor and materials. And that is referring to the construction industry and the hospitality industry. Now, again, participating in politics. Another avenue you can go is with the grassroots level. That means you got to knock on doors and you have to know what you are conveying to people because you have to persuade them to vote for the candidate that you are promoting. Many of us have to understand communication, soft skills. You also have to be able to listen to what a politician says and then go back to see what they've done in the past. You see, a number of politicians, they know how to talk slick. But because a number of us are ignorant people, we continue to vote for the same politicians and there's no change. And as a voter, what I learned here in 2020 is that if you want change, you might have to be part of a lobbyist group if you don't have any money. Again, you're going to have to be part of your city, your state, or a nationwide part of a party, whether it's the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. The bottom line is, in order to make a difference, you got to get involved. If you want to get into the judicial system, study law. Go to school. And the type of law that you want to study, might want to study constitutional law. If you want to get into health, be a doctor. Because there are areas that politicians are covering committees and they don't have the experience. I mean, are you going to put a person who is a social worker to be the head of Health and Human Services? They could do human services, but what about health? What about understanding the CDC? See, politics is more than just the elected officials. It's getting the money. Then you have to get the people out to vote. But you also have to teach people what they're really voting for. Because a number of people really don't know about the issues. They don't study the issues because they have a lot going on in their lives. But if you have a platform, like I do, whether it's small or whether it's large, you have to use it. Set up a radio show. Interview a politician. And if you want to run yourself, know how to get the funds to run. And in this case, particularly with African Americans, many of us don't get into politics unless it's the Democratic Party because, number one, you need these three things if you're going to get into politics. You have to have an issue or an agenda. Then you have to organize. You have to make sure that everybody that you're organizing with agrees with the issue that you want to promote. And then you have to have the money. Now, the way you get the money is you can utilize some donors. But you have to convince donors that the issue you're fighting for is going to help your community. Now, in the African American community, we have a lot of preachers. These pastors, they're not really telling the truth about what's going on in the community. They could take some of that money and promote some politicians. They just want the money for themselves. But when you get into politics, it's basically about you researching not just the candidates, but researching the issues. You see, when I get here on YouTube and I talk about politics, I talk about issues that are dear to me, like the economy and capitalism, the legislatures, because the legislatures make law. I have an entrepreneurial spirit, so I want to promote somebody who's for lower government, lower taxes, lower corporate taxes, somebody who is for the nuclear family. I'm just giving you some of my issues. But even though they're my issues, I have to be able to get into the political process and convey that message to others. And see, getting into a pack, you want like-minded people. Because the only way we're going to make change in politics is we have to get involved. And again, we can get involved using our own media. We can write blogs. We can go to town halls. And we can even run for office. But my position in politics is, before I would even touch the national level, I would get on a local level. Because politics is basically local. This is where the rubber meets the road, because all of your services are in your city. All of your budgets are in your city. Let me give you an example. In the wintertime, if it snows and your streets aren't being plowed, whose fault is that? That's Public Works' fault. But Public Works may have not gotten to your street because they didn't have the budget. So what should we do about that as voters? We need to go down to City Hall and discuss that in a town hall meeting. We need to constantly stay on politicians. Now, if we're not going to get the answers that we need, we can run for office ourselves. But even if we run for office and we win, we can't allow ourselves to be corrupted, because that's going to make us look like a typical politician. See, when you deal with politics, there's a lot of entities that go into politics. But right now, you see that the big corporate giants, corporate media, religious institutions who have money, some of your private institutions, they're going to make life good for themselves because they have the money to continue to buy the politicians. See, a lot of us blame the politicians for everything, but what we got to look at is ourselves, because many of us vote, but we don't get involved with the political process. What I encourage everyone to do, regardless of what party you're affiliated with, get involved with the parties. See what they're about. Because we don't need a tyrannical government. I don't care if you're left or right. We need freedom. Because what we have right now is division. You got the left and the right. They don't like each other. Somehow, we got to get some people to come down the middle and negotiate and promote some common sense ideas. Because in the end, if we do not get involved in the process, as a voter, then our vote may not count. But in the long run, what's good for this country is having people who understand the political process. Because I'm going to tell you this, politics is local, but freedom is worth fighting for. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. Now, I'm not going to be putting any videos on Facebook, so I'm relegating all my videos to Twitter. Also, I have a blog talk radio show, 215-383-5785. On that show, I give you videos I give you information that's too hot for YouTube. And also, if you're looking for some education in science, technology, engineering, and math, check out the Mind of STEM channel. On that channel, I give you a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. And I am uploading information that I utilize on my STEM channel to my LinkedIn page. And at the end of the day, you need to hear this. Be blessed for what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Always know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. I want everybody to be respectful to one another when it comes to politics, because too many of us are filled with hate, prejudice. But like I said before, do not just be a voter. Participate in the political process. Study the issues. Because what we have now are a lot of uninformed people. And when uninformed people vote, we're in trouble. We will be taken over because uninformed people are very gullible people. And once again, I thank you for listening to this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. Please have a wonderful and blessed evening. God bless you. I'm out.